Alright, welcome everyone, it's your boy Kroy, and today I'm going to be going through the Disgaea main characters plus the side game characters, putting them all into a tier list and rating them. I've had quite a few new ideas pop up for Disgaea and kind of like content ideas for Disgaea since Disgaea 6 is coming out, so I figured before it comes out I'd do a whole tier list on all of the characters. I've seen some tier lists be done that include most of the characters or a lot of the Disgaea characters, but none of it include the Disgaea characters plus the sort of side game characters. So rules for a tier list are pretty simple. The characters just have to be from any game from Disgaea 1 to 5, that includes D5, and then we also have the side games. So there's pucelle Tactics, Phantom Brave, and then Makai Kingdom. With that, it brings the list to around like 50 plus characters, so I'll try my best to briefly describe where and why I'm placing them on what spot on the list. We have SSS tier for like, you know, really good character, great character design, amazing of the story, amazing in the game. We have just amazing, so a great character overall. Pretty cool, so that means they're, you know, pretty decent character. You like them a little bit. Good character, kind of, they're alright. They're not horrible, but they're not overly great. Didn't care for, obviously didn't care for, and then awful fucking dog shit characters. So of course it's going to be very heavy on my own personal opinion on where I want to place these characters, how I feel about the games or how I feel about the stories and shit like that. And since I've kind of gone through the list and made the characters in order from like Disgaea 1 all the way to the side games, we're starting out with Disgaea 1 first, and that leads us with Laharl. So Laharl's in, I think, just about every Disgaea game now that I think of it. Like, he's always a post-game character. In the first game, he's like a very heavy focus for the first game, obviously, as a main character. Even though he's in Disgaea D2, which is like kind of one of my least favorite Disgaea games, which we'll go through in different characters. I think Laharl's kind of a staple, plus he was kind of like in the story of Disgaea 2 and other ones, so I think I'm gonna put him at amazing. Etna, pretty good character, honestly. A really good character. She played a bigger role in like Disgaea 1 and 2. Overall, she's pretty good for the game. Like in general, she's one of the better characters to level and get her attack up and everything. Etna's story and like backstory is also really good too. Like in the first game, you had that closet spot in the hub world or whatever that if you found, you could go do every chapter and find out more about like why she's doing the things she is in the story. I think pretty good character. They explained her well in the games and everything. She'll go at SSS. Flawn, I feel a little bit different about Flawn. Like, I feel like Flawn's still a really good character. She's funny, a good comedic break, but there's definitely more comedic characters I found. Flawn's kind of like more in the line of like sometimes funny to like sometimes annoying for me. I think she still redeems herself though a little bit, so I'm gonna leave her at good character. Alright, we got the space people from Disgaea 1 now as well. We got Gordon first, so they get introduced to Laharl and the crew when they end up going to the Netherworld to try and kill the Overlord. What actually ends up happening is they basically just end up teaming up with Laharl and the rest of them because they're stuck there, and then they find out more about their story and stuff. Now, I feel like Gordon was a pretty cool character, honestly. He's pretty underrated. Like, I don't hear many people talk about a lot of these side characters or sort of like the later half of the story characters, but he made for like good comedic break. There's good banter with him and Laharl. I don't see why he wouldn't be a pretty cool character. This girl's name, Jennifer, she's a little bit different from what I remember. She was General Carter's daughter or something, and then she was like planted to be Gordon's like number 2. And there's a whole thing in the story with that. She also had that one move in the game, Big Bang or whatever, the instant like 3x3 radius move, which if you ever fucking play a Disgaea game, you know 3x3 radius is like the best for leveling. Okay, so for that reason, she'll go in pretty cool next to Gordon. And then Thursday, the robot was pretty fun. I don't think he got as many moments to shine or like do as much as the other ones, especially with leveling 2. I remember his gameplay, like moveset, wasn't the best. For that reason, I'll put him at good character. I still like Thursday though. And then Curtis turns into a Prinny after he gets like reincarnated because he was like a scumbag as a human, but then learned to reatone for his sins or something like that. He also goes from like being like rival or like enemy of the game into being your ally near the end of it. So I kind of feel indifferent about Curtis. From what I can remember, he was in a few other Disgaea games too as DLC and post-game. If I'm correct too, I'll try and figure it out. I think in Disgaea 2, and if you use like the cell phone to call a random NPC to a mission, Curtis might be one of the NPCs that would come and help you in the mission. Not really useful now, but the mechanic was dope for when I was like really young learning the games. I think I'll put him at pretty cool as well. And with that, we only have one character from Disgaea D2. I'm only including Celici because she includes a bigger role in the story or whatever. But I really feel like Disgaea D2, there's a lot of reasons why I don't like Disgaea D2 as much as the other games, but one of the main ones is that, like, it just kind of felt like a huge, like, not like fan fiction, but like the story was very random compared to the game. Say in Disgaea 1, there's a lot of like reoccurring dark themes, light themes, and funny themes, you know. The story was up and down, like it was pretty good overall though. Celici is the sister of Laharl, or they implemented her in such a way that was like so frustrating because it didn't make much sense, and it just seems like I said, like a fan fiction or someone like came up with it in her head. Like, what if Laharl had a sister? And then like, what if Laharl got turned into a girl? And then what if this happened? I myself am going to rate Celici in the awful tier. I really do not like that character. Like, I don't even think she's been in the Disgaea 5 DLC. I don't think we'll see her in a Disgaea 6 DLC or any other ones. It's just not a memorable character, not a very good one. I mean, she's very similar to Flan as well, so it might have been better if Laharl had, like, say, a younger brother who was more of like a magician, fighter, or like a necromancer. I don't know, something. Even if it was a girl too, they could have done it in a lot more ways than have someone that's so similar to someone who's already on the main party. With that, it leads us into Disgaea 2. So first off with Adele. I really like the Disgaea 2 games. It's like Disgaea 1 or 2 were in between my favorites. I think I'm going to give it to Disgaea 2 for being like a little bit more favored in my end. So Adele. I think Adele is a really dope character. In the story of Disgaea 2, he's basically the only human that doesn't get turned into a demon, and he's watching his whole like family and other people like around him. Everybody's turned into like demons and monsters and different like classes when he's just normal human. On top of that, his mother tries to summon the Overlord, which actually ends up summoning the princess, the Overlord's daughter, this girl. Now the cool thing I remember, like, it goes in with both characters, I think, honestly, because the whole story, they play off each other really well. Like, if I compare, say, Adele to some of the other main characters and their stories and how they interact with other characters, it's very different. I'm on I think Adele is like an SSS tier. At the same time, he might just be an amazing. I don't think, like, I think he's overly, like, has a few, like, dumb tropes or like very reoccurring. He does at least make out with Rosalind by the end of the game. Either way though, I think in my opinion I'm gonna put him at SSS unless I feel different after the list. Rosalind as well. I feel like Rosalind's one of the best characters in Disgaea, and here's why. So the main plot for Disgaea, you know, you meet Rosalind and you take her throughout the story. You go to the old castle, you get the bodyguard, and then you go through trying to figure out, you know, where her father is, Overlord Zeta. At the end of the story, if you don't want to hear this, skip a little bit. At the end of the story, turns out that she's actually Overlord Zenon. Overlord Zenon is Rosalind, but there's this other Overlord Zenon who's been the, like, villain of the entire game. And he just, like, describes perfectly why he's been doing everything he's been doing. It's to keep the real Overlord Zenon trapped. That way he can pretend to be Overlord Zenon and then take over like all the Netherworlds and shit. Really dope character, really dope curveball thrower, whatever. Definitely FSSS tier. Tank is fucking dope too. I don't think Tank is an SSS tier character just for the poor fact that they haven't put him in any of other games as DLC or anything. You know, he might be in some of the mobile apps or some shit like that, but I'm talking about like the main games. They need to bring people like Tank back. Tank was dope. He could move really far. He was very funny during the story. He's a different type of character. He's supposed to be like a butler that got like turned into a frog, and then he turns into like a red frog as well. It's fucking dope. Tank's a good character, as well as they implemented a special ending in the second game. Taro. This is Adele's little brother. He also turns out, or wants to be, Rosalind's servant or whatever. I think, like, Taro's alright, but Taro and Hanako were both monster classes, but I'll go over a little bit more after. Taro just doesn't really do too much to make you, like, overly love him or want him to return in future games. Like, if they put him as a DLC and he's a normal monster class, like, it's kind of shitty. I do like his attack, though. It is unique. You know, he spins his arms like a fucking windmill and shit and hits the enemy one by one. That's pretty cool. So for that reason, I put him in good character. It's not like I don't care for him or he's awful, but he's definitely not a great character. Hanako, on the other hand, I think Hanako can get put in pretty cool for the reason that she's not that bad. She turns into like a demon lady, like throughout the story or up into the story. You get like another version of Hanako with one of the DLCs as well. Overall, I feel like she's a little bit more interesting, or she could be used in the future games, you know, even as like a side boss or a mini boss or someone you fight or see along the story. She could even join your party. You know, there's still a lot of potential for Hanako, like not like Taro. I don't think they would do that same thing with a character like Taro, you know. And then Yukimaru, you meet at the throughout the story, but you meet her mainly at the arena, and then she joins your party after there's like a fake Yukimaru trying to sabotage shit. There's also like a story arc with her brother. It also ties into like her whole clan hating Overlord Zeta for wiping out her clan, so it's only like her and her brother left, some Naruto type thing. I think she's a good character. She's not overly great or overly interesting, but she was a pretty good character. And then with that, I have Axel. Reason why I have Axel in the second game is because of Dark Hero Days, as well as he reoccurs in a lot of the future games as well, either as like a side character, DLC character, or post-game character that you can unlock. There's lots of like Axel references in the Disgaea games. He's almost like, I'd say, as sort of like referenced as like someone like Plenaire or even like Laharl. You know, Axel pops up almost just as much, if not more, than Laharl does through the main games. Axel is a pretty dislikable character at first. You know, he's just like this like rockstar wannabe that's like failing at life. Then you learn like throughout the story that his whole family's broke, his mom's raising like 6 kids, other stuff. He's just constantly getting into shitty scenario after scenario, and he kind of wins you over. Like, for some people, there's a lot of people that don't care for that character, but I think all in all, he's a pretty cool character, maybe even amazing. I'll have to sit on it and think. And with that, we move into Disgaea 3. Experiment, if that's the only soundbite I remember from Mao. Disgaea 3, I'm gonna have to tell you guys, like, it's one of the games I haven't played in a while, just because I haven't had a PS3 to play this game through all the way for a while. I just got my PS3 emulator set up, so if I ever redo this list, characters might change. But I'm going off of what I remember from the past like decade, maybe like 6-7 years ago, last time I played the game all the way through. I really did like Mao. I didn't like him as much as, say, like Laharl or Adele, but I liked him in a different way. For Disgaea 3, they decided to choose like a whole kind of like school theme around the game, so these characters were a bit younger, they were a bit more naive and like foolish and stuff like that, so a lot of people didn't really like it as much because it wasn't as serious as something like Disgaea 2. Mao was trying to fight his father, I think, for the entire game, and he's one of the only like main story characters that I can remember other than like Yukimaru for actually getting a skill or getting a special attack that you only unlock once you get past a certain part of a main game. There's a lot with Mao, so I think he's an amazing character, honestly. I'm putting him there. The rest of the characters in Disgaea 3, I'm gonna have to say, I don't like. This guy isn't that great. I can't remember his name at the moment because I could never pronounce it as a kid. I know it starts with an E and I can almost spell it, but he was not a very memorable character other than for kind of being like a brat. I did not care for him at all. Rasbarrel, on the other hand, she was alright. I feel like she did a bit more in the story, had a bit more fun with her. She's not an overly bad character I didn't care for, but I think putting her at good character is fair enough. I actually liked Mr. Champlo, or however you say his name. I like this guy a lot. He's the chef that you find of a story, and after beating him and stuff, he actually joins your party. And he's pretty good, like melee martial artist kind of fighter, and he's always talking very loud, so he's very comedic break from the story and everything. He's trying to give insight while being himself, which turns out to be funny. I think, you know, I'll put him at pretty cool. I think this is Master Big Star, if I'm correct. That name sounds stupid, but I swear that is his name. Again, not an overly, like, cared for character. There's sort of like a feud between him and Okay, there's like 50 plus characters. You guys got to expect me to forget a few. Salvatore the Magnificent. Yeah, that is Master Big Star. So for Master Big Star, from what I remember, like, I didn't really overly like these characters. I'd probably say I didn't care for Master Big Star, and then I did like her a little bit. I also remember there's like 2 ninja characters you get with one of the characters. I'm not putting those into the entire list because they're just sort of like side characters beyond side characters. They're literally the skins of normal characters that you can create, but made into like sort of story characters. So I would have just put them at didn't care for anyways. Almaz, the wannabe hero. I honestly, like, I didn't really like Almaz that much either. I don't know if it's just me, but his whole like ordeal, just his whole gimmick just wasn't that fun. There's a princess named Sapphire with him as well, and the love story or story between those two just was way worse than if you compare it to, like, say, Adele and Rosalind. For that reason, I think he goes and didn't care for. And then Sapphire as well, like, I don't really, like, overly care for this character or remember her a bunch. So for that reason, she's going and didn't care for as well. Now we have Disgaea 4 characters. Now there's some characters in here that... Oh, wait, my bad. This guy was in Disgaea 4, not Disgaea 3. I don't know why I put him in that. I know there's probably people already commenting about that, but I caught ya. Go back to the comments and re-edit your comment for so you can fucking correct yourself as I've corrected you. But my bad. So now starting out with Disgaea 4, I've already ranked one of the characters, but going from Valvatoris. He's a vampire that starts to eat sardines instead of blood throughout the story. It's pretty comedic though. I honestly didn't overly care for Disgaea 4, like the story, the characters. It just didn't hit as hard or to home as the other games really do. So for that reason, I think Valvatoris is still a good character. Like, I like his concept. I like his role in the story. Pretty instructor going into just becoming badass again. Like, it's great, but at the same time, it's not overly amazing like some other characters. We have Volcanoes or Artina. So her story was a little bit more interesting because she had a little bit more to figure out about her and her involvement in Disgaea 4 as well, but I still, like, it's not like I don't care for her. I just feel like she's not that, like, overly memorable or great of a character in my mind. Like, it didn't stand out that much. The next 3 characters, on the other hand, I feel like people are going to be surprised with. First, we got Desco. Desco is a cross between a monster and a gun, or like a super weapon. Very cool concept. Desco's art is fucking sick, like very unique compared to a lot of the characters, which is the most important thing, you know. Having cool unique characters is huge and very memorable, as well as she could actually turn into a weapon using the magic change system, which helped introduce it, I feel, a lot better. Having Desco be like an actual cool weapon, I think, really changed stuff. Like, I'm pretty sure Raspberry could magic change, but Desco is a fucking, like, super weapon. So being able to get, like, Desco leveled up and then use her as a weapon is really sick. For that reason, I think that she's in the amazing tier character, if not maybe SSS tier, but I'd have to see her more in like DLCs and other stuff, or reoccur in more games. Fenrich, on the other hand, I feel like he's a pretty chill character. He tries to slip Valvatoris blood all the time. He tries to get him back to his original strength, you know. He's a very enabling character, but he's really like just the like right-hand man for Valvatoris. Like, he'd jump in front of a bullet before it hit Valvatoris for sure, or jump in front of a blood splat. So I'm putting him at pretty cool. And that leaves just Fuka from Disgaea 4. Fuka, I feel like, was pretty cool as well. There is quite a bit more with her, you know. She's a more like strong female character, really stood out in the story, not like you know, sort of like the other characters that are princesses and other shit. She's more like tomboyish, if that's the correct word to use. There's a lot of other stuff with her too, I remember. Like, they made like more merch with her, and then I'm pretty sure she was in Disgaea 5 for DLC. I could be wrong there though, but I'm gonna put her at pretty cool as well. With that, we go into Disgaea 5. So, starting out with Disgaea 5, we have Kilia. Kilia's main story is that he goes from being like this brutal tyrant to meeting the love of his life, and then she gets killed, so then he's like fighting himself throughout the entire game. The only problem is that like Kilia is such a unlikable character. Like it does so much. Like if you think any of the other characters do things that are slightly oblivious or slightly like, oh come on man, that's just an anime trope, like Kilia is the like top of a chain of it. I am very in between putting Kilia a good character and didn't care for. I can't say I didn't care for him honestly, because he is still an alright character, but I think he is just not that great. I put him at a good character honestly. Next up we have Seraphine. Seraphine is just like the tits in your face character for the entire game. She's very dumb. She's the typical, you know, like just like trope for video games. I feel like we've had enough of these like dumb fucking characters, you know, like I really feel like Seraphine is just, I don't care for her, or she's next to awful. I might actually just put her at awful honestly, because I just don't see the overall appeal for her. She kind of redeems herself throughout the story, but when you meet her, she's just like a brat who wants to like take Kilia and keep him from fighting so she can like sleep with him. That's basically it, you know. It's a very bad character in my opinion though. Moving on, we have Christo. Christo, I think, was alright. Like he was the more smart or level and cool character for the game. I don't ever feel like he's going to reappear in like another Disgaea game, or if he does, like I don't know why they do him. They probably do like Kilia, Seraphine, and then maybe like Red Magnus or Usalia. There's like some talk about him possibly being Master Lamington from Disgaea 1. I remember reading a lot about that, but I don't think that's true. I think Christo's just a kind of like mid character. If anything, he was like kind of replaceable very easily, or could have been a different character. I want to put him at didn't care for. Moving on, Usalia. I feel like Usalia was a little bit more memorable. I remember, you know, having the fight at her own like Neverworld and trying to take it back for them and learn her story and everything. It was a little bit better than, say, Christo's. On top of that, she had a giant like printy ball that she would like run around on and shit. For that reason, I'm gonna put her at pretty cool. She's not a horrible character, and she's not like an overly excelling character, but I feel like she's a little bit better than the average alright character. Red Magnus. I actually really like Red Magnus. Red Magnus was fucking jokes. If they made a fucking game just based around Red Magnus, I'd go for it, man. I'd make another 3D game like Makai Kingdom and make Red Magnus like the leader of it and shit. He is a funny fucking guy. The banter and the stuff that he brings to the story, there's a lot of moments just they're all popping into my head one after another now, just how much Red Magnus was good in the story. Along with that, he's just very clueless, you know. He's kind of like a dumb character, but with the help of his friends, you know, he can be guided to strength and good stuff. I'm putting Red Magnus at amazing tier because I like that character. Now we have Zeroken. Zeroken, he's kind of like the rival, or like the villain. Like he seemed like he was gonna maybe replace like be like an Axel role in Disgaea 5, but then he joined the team like somewhat halfway through, so I feel kind of indifferent on him. I wouldn't say I didn't care for him though. Like I liked his character, and he had that one ability that was like a shadow clone jutsu that made 4 different Zerokens pop out around him. So for that, I'll put him in good character. And with that, we got 3 games left: Makai Kingdom, Lapuso Tactics, and then Phantom Brave. I'm gonna go through the Makai Kingdom characters first. As you guys know, I really like this game. I played it extensively, and then made like a huge video early on in my YouTube video making career of a channel. I'll leave a link to that video, of course, if you guys want to check it out. But Makai Kingdom is a game that I've recently played in the past couple years. I know all these characters very well, same with Pucelle Tactics and then Phantom Brave. So starting it out, we have Overlord Zeta. Story of Overlord Zeta is like he's a powerful overlord, and then he ends up having to turn himself into a book to prevent like his entire world from being destroyed. Very good. It's a very good game, honestly. Compared to the Disgaea games, I'd maybe even put Makai Kingdom above them. I love the just premise of it. You meet all these different overlords that play a good role into the story. I would love it if it was longer, or if they made like another sequel to Makai Kingdom or something. On top of that, Overlord Zeta's been in like almost every Disgaea game, now that I come to think of it. I don't think there's a Disgaea game where he has not appeared as a character that you either fight as like in the post game, or you see, or you know, he's always in it. And if you ever go to replay his game, if you didn't know him beforehand, I feel like you'd be really pleased with him. For that reason, I'm putting Overlord Zeta in SSS tier. Pram, a really good character as well. There's lots of foreshadowing in the Makai Kingdom story that she was the one that actually caused the whole situation. There's just a lot of good stuff with this character too. I will put Pram in the amazing tier. I just realized I might have forgot a character, Overlord Zeta's daughter, Peta. But the only thing is that the PSP version did not get an English translation. And on top of that, you only really find her in Disgaea D2, unless I go and play the PSP version, which has like an English patch that's fan made now. So I might end up doing that in time, so having her in the list. But if you're wondering why she isn't in there, that's why. Going on, we have Seedle. Seedle's sort of like the enemy or the bad guy of the game. He appears to be helping Zeta, but he's always causing problems between Salome and other overlords in the pack. And by the end, you know, he's just full-blown dick enemy. So he is a pretty good character, though, I would say. Like, his character design, really good. For that reason, and for him playing a good role in the story, I'll put him at pretty cool. Next up, we have Salome. In order to like keep Zeta alive, she was sacrificing her power like every single day. It was like getting drained out of her and different stuff like that. And then Zeta didn't really care till like near the end of the story, of course, because he just wanted to get his shit over with. Like, I feel like she was a pretty cool character as well, though. Next up, we got Mickey, or the Three Heads. I forget what the total name is. I'll put it up right there, but this was a good character. Mickey had like 3 different body parts that all had different personalities. So Mickey was very like skittish and scared, and then the other 2 were always like trying to make him, push him to do like bad stuff, or like stuff that get him in trouble. I really liked Mickey. I wish he would appear more in like the future games, because like his whole premise is that he's supposed to be like a powerful overlord in like a different game or something like that. But I feel like that's also could just be like a running joke. Either way though, I feel like Mickey's up there in the amazing characters tier list. But the main reason for him being there is just, if you didn't know, in the story they try and find this person called the One in Makai Kingdom, and no one knows who it is. There's sort of like this god power like character, and it actually turns out to be Mickey. So for that reason, it's very funny, and Mickey's a pretty good character, great design. Good old Babylon, he's this old dragon from the story who was like by far one of my favorite characters in the game. He was always like sleeping or just doing old guy stuff, you know, very wholesome character. He is very funny. I loved Babylon. I'm putting him at the amazing tier as well. Next up, we have the God of Destruction, Alex. I feel like Alex is a pretty good character too. As well too. So he was sort of like Zeta's rival throughout the story, like actual rival. He was trying to kill Zeta and assassinate him a bunch of times, but it never worked. And then by the end of it, he ends up becoming like sort of like Zeta's ally or friend. He's also the God of Destruction, and Disgaea 6 are supposed to be like a new God of Destruction, so I have no idea if this like Alex will pop up. I would say he should though, and if he does, he'd probably be higher on the tier list for making a new role in the new story. So for that, I think I'm gonna put him under pretty cool. He's not a character that I really dislike at all, and I kind of like Alex's game design a lot more, or like I kind of like Alex's story and involvement in the story definitely a lot more than most of these characters. Next up, we have King Drake. This was like probably the more annoying character for me in Makai Kingdom. I didn't really care for King Drake that much. Like, he doesn't really do too much to help us in the story. He's not very good comedic relief either. He's kind of more like forced, or just like, oh my god, get this guy the fuck out of here so we can go on to the story. Maybe, I don't know. I can't even say awful tier. Like, I did like him a little bit more in Makai Kingdom, but I feel like it's fair to put him there. He'd maybe be in Didn't Care For, but he's definitely in between those two. Okay, next up we got Pucelle Tactics. So all the main characters from those games that you unlock and play with in your story. I excluded the extra characters, like the extra cats that you get through the story, because they aren't really like unique or do much in it. But first up, we got Pierre. She is a pretty good character, has a lot of good story points throughout the game. Good game in general as well. She was in the game that was previous. She was in the game that preceded Disgaea and right before them, and making, say, like the Dark World. I think that like led into the Item World. But other than that, her character design, I feel like pretty good. She was always really strong, just trying to get through the fucking story, meeting all these other characters and helping them out. Overall, she's a pretty good character. I'm putting her in the amazing tier. She keeps on making reappearances too in the new Disgaea games. I hope we get her in Disgaea 6 as well, because overall, really good character and pretty good as a boss as well. Next up, we have her little brother, Culotte. Wow, what a bad character. Like, Culotte, I can't even fucking remember Culotte, and I played this game like 2 years ago. Culotte is horrible. From what I remember, he was just like the little brother, really like a crybaby a lot. He's not memorable. He's never going to be in another Disgaea game, I think. Like, we're not going to put this guy in Disgaea 6 as like a DLC fucking fighting Culotte. Like, who's going to want a chapter on that? So for that reason, I'm going to put him in the awful tier. Next up, we got Alouette. You can only see like half her body there, but Alouette is sort of like the angel, like healer of the group type thing. It's not exactly exposed what her true like point of a story is until like really later on, but I feel like she was a little bit better than Culotte. She isn't like a Didn't Care For character. I'd say overall she was like a good character. After that, we have Eclair. Eclair, I feel like it was actually pretty cool. She's returned to in DLCs in the future Disgaea games, mainly because her story in Pucelle Tactics is like pretty memorable. She's a princess. She has a normal version of herself, and then she has a dark version of herself which you fight. Pretty good character overall. I think I'll put her in pretty cool. And then Kroy. Kroy, man, I remember Kroy very well. He had like a lot of like good moments in the story. Made the story very intense. Definitely, if he was not in the story, it would have been like a way different type of game. I think he's a pretty cool character. I wouldn't put him in amazing, especially because he hasn't had any future game returns. But he is a pretty good character. We meet Homard the pirate and then his like gang of chocolate cats. Sounds fucking ridiculous, but this is what 2002 Pucelle Tactics was about. So we meet him, his gang of cats, and then this other little fairy called Papillion. I believe that's the right name. Yeah, Papillion. Overall, I feel like Homard was a little bit more memorable. His attacks were pretty cool. He had his little gang going on and stuff. It's pretty unfortunate he hasn't been in more future Disgaea games, so for that reason I'll put him at pretty cool. The chocolate cats, on the other hand, I mean, they're not overly like memorable. I put them at Didn't Care For. Like, they're not awful characters. I remember they're kind of funny, goofy, just like kind of like the Prinnies, you know, pre-Prinnies if anything. And then Papillion. This could have been a good character, but it makes no fucking sense. Let's just like search up Papillion and see if there's anyone else who's had like trouble with her. Alright, you know what? I just tried looking for like 5-10 minutes for anything on this character, and there's barely any info on this character because of the few people that have used her. When you get her in the story, she is at a very low level compared to other characters. I don't even remember what it is right now, but it is fucking almost should be illegal. But she gets in your party at a very low level, doesn't have that many good moves unless you really build into her. For that reason, I'm putting her at Didn't Care For. And that leaves us 2 more characters, Morona and Ash from Phantom Brave. I didn't put any of the other characters, like the sort of like story characters that you get in another Morona, just because there's not much of a point. I feel like the game's whole like premise or kind of focus is on Ash and Morona. Morona having her parents die, then she can like summon phantoms, so she has this gift. During the entire story, it's like this depressing field of like everybody hates Morona because they think she's cursed, and then by the end of it, everybody loves her because she like saves the entire world. I think overall, Morona is an SSS tier character because she was very different from the other characters in all the other games. Definitely one of the more memorable characters for at least myself. Going on to Ash, I feel like he's not in SSS tier, but he is definitely in amazing tier for the reason that he was just really good in a fucking story. I liked Ash, his whole like, I'm gonna protect Morona and make sure what happened to me and her parents doesn't happen to her type of you know, ordeal that he goes through. There's a huge like twist of the story that I won't spoil, but there's lots of reasons to like Ash. He's definitely a way better hero than the fake like fucking Almaz. That's it. I think that looks good. We've got all the characters marked. I don't think I want to make any revisions. The only thing I can really think is maybe putting Flan from good character over to pretty cool, but at the same time, I don't really feel like I want to do that. Like, I feel like she's just a good character. It's not like I overly care for Flan that much. So yeah, I think this is a pretty good like representation of what the tier list is. Take a look at it, take a photo of it. I'm going to leave a link in the description to sort of make this tier list yourself, so you can go through all the photos that I put together and then make it yourself, put it on your Twitter or your Facebook or whatever. Also, feel free to have any discussion about the characters, of course, in the comment section below. I just wanted to do this video because I felt like it could give more good insight into my different opinions on the characters from all the games, seeing as I've played them all like multiple times, and it is like one of my favorite overall game series and sort of like franchise or whatever. Remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel for more good videos that I try and get out. You can go to my Twitter, twitter.com/CoolKidCroc. Follow me on TikTok as well, and that's about it. With that, hope you guys have a good one. Thank you for watching the video, and peace.